All right. So thank everybody for coming today. And this is our second program of our Pan-African Youth Summit. Last week, we had these two beautiful young souls right here, Christian, and I don't see Sister Akua. She's in the back. And they did falsification of African consciousness by Nana Amos Wilson. And next week, we'll have our brother Tay. And then in the ending, we'll have my bro Jawabu. It's got some special. Oh, it's the other way around? My bad. My bad. So next week, my bro Jawabu. I just want to go ahead and give them shout outs because I hope that y'all come to that one as well. My bro just got back from Jamaica and he's got a lot of things to share with us. My bro Tay, he'll also be tapping into Destruction of Black Civilization by Nana Chancellor Williams. So first, I'd like to say, how is everybody doing today? Great. Okay. Yes. You can't. I don't think I heard all of y'all, especially the one in the back in that comfortable chair right there with that smirk. I don't think he said anything. So how are we doing today? Good. Okay. So today we'll be going over lessons that we can learn from our ancestor Nana Carter G Woodson. And just as a preface, if you hear the word Nana, all that means is this is a respected elder or ancestor, a teacher, a master teacher at that. So I'm showing reverence when I say Nana. If that's unfamiliar to anybody, then that's all that is. So we can continue. Well, first, actually, I like to say that I want to be a little interactive. And I do have everybody in here is actually special, but I know one person in particular will know the answer to this. And when we are teaching, what is probably one of the best modalities to start something off? I'm not going to necessarily stare at them, but hopefully they say something. I may. Yes. What would you say? Oh yeah. No, I'm saying one of the best modalities. Like, how do we? Okay, I'm gonna call her out, Miss Bridget. How do we? What is one of the best ways that we can start off a lesson? What? Like you just said this last night. Storytelling, right? Like we're like, I know for African people, it is said that we're a very oral people. However, if you actually look at our text, we've been writing since, the beginning of time, or at least we were the first ones writing. And I don't know who's ordering this stuff, but it's got to stop because this is gonna mess me up the whole time. So let's not continue with these orders. This is the last one. So I'm gonna start us off with a story, and I hope that you all enjoy it. Now, everybody in here received a bottle of water, okay? I would like for y'all to open it. And every single time that I either read or say the word white, I want you to take a sip, okay? You don't got to start yet. All right. Okay, facts. You got me. All right, so this is the story of TJ, okay? TJ is a Black boy that is born in Atlanta at Grady Memorial Hospital, a Grady baby. Unfortunately, the boy's parents are Negroes. This is, and I'm gonna get into this as we continue, but Black people with white minds. So that boy, his name is Tom, but he likes to go by Deuce or TJ because he's a junior. He is not given the home training necessary to counter and combat the constant attacks on his mind by American socialization and education. TJ's first toys are Superman, Batman, He-Man, and Aquaman action figures, all white. Okay, we taking the sips. I ain't see, okay. TJ's first books are about Jimmy, Chucky, and Susie. See Jimmy run, see Chucky run, see Susie run. Jimmy, Chucky, and Susie are all white. Okay, we're gonna race to the bathroom after this. Each Christmas, TJ earnestly waits for Santa Claus, a big, fat, jolly white man, to bring gifts for good behavior. On the television, TJ watches Gravity Falls, Phineas and Ferb, Good Luck Charlie, and Hannah Montana, all white. He seldom sees any black faces on TV or movies, and when he does, they're the side character or stereotypes: butler, maids, mammies, pimps, prostitutes, criminals, dummies, yes men, or chocolate-colored white people. And the women in the media he sees are treated as objects, second-class citizens, and as inferior to white men. One of Tom's or TJ's favorite pastimes is watching cowboy and Indian flicks, Batman, playing Minecraft, and Call of Duty. He really enjoys the fighting and the killing between the main characters and their enemies, and always cheers for the Cowboys and Batman to win. The Cowboys just so happen to always be white. The Cowboys wear white hats, and the bad guys always wear black hats. At church, TJ listens to his minister preach about Jesus Christ being the Son of God. Every portrait TJ sees, though, it has blonde hair and blue eyes and white skin. TJ reasons that if Jesus is the Son of God, then God must be white and must favor white people. So TJ also listens to his minister preach about suffering in life and in the next life, or I think, good thing I know my story, and getting his blessings in the next life. So TJ's parents, they work for white people. TJ really likes his father's boss and hopes and prays one day when he grows up, he has a white boss equally likable. TJ's friends call one another the M word. You black this, you black that, you nappy head this, you big lip nose that. When TJ plays games like Tarzan, everyone wants to be Tarzan, but none of them want to be the African savages. At age 6, TJ enters public schools in the public school system. However, or the public fool system. However, before he attends his class, he has already been programmed to believe certain things. He believes the myths of black inferiority and white superiority. He in fact believes that God made the black race inferior, which is the curse of Ham stories, so they so say, but if you actually read it, then you know the genealogy doesn't line up. TJ admires things white, but despises things black. He believes in white paternalism. The seeds of self-hatred are planted in TJ's mind before he enters school. School will now nurture these seeds. At school, TJ stands up each and every morning, places his hand over his heart, and pledges his allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. He will repeat this 10-second exercise in school for the next 12 years. This exercise will pay off later when he volunteers to go to war to protect white America's interest abroad. Now remember, Nana Woodson has said, Nana Woodson has said, he will go without being told. So white people call this patriotism, honoring God and country. In actuality, it is being someone else's flunky, fighting and dying for Exxon, Lockheed, ITT, Dow Chemical, Ford Motor Company, Chase Manhattan Bank, and numerous other white multinational corporations. This is what Vietnam was about, even though some politicians try to convince us that it was only about stopping the spread of communism. So school introduces TJ to new worlds. He learns the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. He also began studying history for the first time. His instructors began his study by teaching him about the accomplishments of the Greeks, Romans, Egyptians, the English, and European peoples. On the other hand, they teach TJ only about 4 prominent Black people: Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Arminta Ross, George Washington Carver, and Martin Luther King Jr. They only teach that Douglass was, they only teach that Douglass and Tubman were runaway slaves and something about a railroad. They teach him that the agricultural genius, George Washington Carver, was a scientific joke that played around with peanuts. They teach him that the courageous king was a great Black man because he advocated for nonviolence. They also teach TJ that white people brought civilization and Christianity to the savage Africans, and that white people had to enslave us to save our poor heathen souls. By the time TJ graduates the 7th grade, he earnestly believes the following things. 1, Black people are inferior, lazy, and dumb. White people are superior, hardworking, and intelligent. Black people have no history and should be thankful that whites have rescued them from savagery. Europe is the mother of civilization. Africa is the mother of primitivism. Black people can do nothing for themselves. Black features, nose, hair, skin are ugly. Black people should strive to be like whites. All Black people must sometimes. Every man or woman has a price. Success is measured by how thick your wallet is. Black people hold Black people down. Black people can never unify. Black people in America have nothing in common with Black people in Africa. Black people must depend on whites to help them. Black people are cutthroats and welfare cheats. It actually bothers me to read that. As Tom enters high school, his mind is already programmed for racism and self-destruction. This point cannot be emphasized enough. Any system that teaches a young child to despise her or himself is programming that child to be a racist. Many Negroes in this nation called Revolutionary Kwame Ture, formerly Stokely Carmichael, a racist because he speaks the truth about white America and Zionists. If y'all weren't familiar, I think it was 2020 when John Lewis had transitioned. And I don't know if you guys paid attention at the funeral or not, but Bill Clinton alluded to this at John Lewis's funeral when he said that John Lewis kind of went the other route, but he came back to the right side. Without context, some people might not have caught that, but these same Negroes would not call themselves racist for hating their own people, for hating themselves. Poor Tom, he is the victim of a racist and unjust system, American education. This system has transformed TJ into a mental mess, a mental monster, a confused little creature. He despises himself. He despises his people. He has a low opinion of women. He hates the Blackness inside of him. He hates the face he sees every day in the mirror. He hates to hear the word Africa and becomes hostile whenever someone says he is of African descent. Poor TJ. In high school, TJ's indoctrination increases. His white guidance counselor steers him toward a vocational curriculum. She believes that Black people are not capable of mastering the technical scientific fields, that Black people were created to use their hands, not their mind, she tells him. TJ, however, is interested in the sciences. He does well in classes, but he doesn't feel good about himself or his people. He begins to hook up with more of his white friends. He socializes and studies with them. He dresses and talks like them. He curls his hair to make it look like theirs. Good hair. If he had the money, he would probably get a nose job and maybe even skin lightening cream. He even almost exclusively dates white girls. He loves blondes, but makes exceptions for light-skinned girls, but the lighter, the better in his mind. How far are we in these waters? Okay. So TJ turns his back on his Black friends, the few that he has. To him, they have no culture. They have no history. They cannot write properly. They do not act civilized, a term meaning they don't act white. They speak an inferior language, slang or ebonics. During his senior year, when Tom applies to colleges, he does not even consider a Black college. He says they're inferior, he tells his sister, who was applying to Clark Atlanta. After serious deliberations, TJ decides on the University of Georgia. Why not? In the fall, he enrolls at the Athens, Georgia-based public institution. At UGA, he occasionally socializes with other Black students and joins Black organizations. However, he sees these organizations as resume fillers for corporate white America. He tells a white friend that he does not believe in separatism. TJ doesn't realize that he's practicing separatism with his own people. Poor TJ. He tells another white friend that UGA's Student Alliance is doing too much. They're wannabe radicals and racist because its officers agitate to increase UGA's Black enrollment. TJ also refuses to interact with the Athens Clark County Black community. To him, the Black people of the Athens community are ignorant locals and uncultured, uncouth inferiors. Tom graduates from UGA after years of political inactivity and enters UGA law. He didn't even consider a Black law school. At UGA, he excels in his studies, but lacks self-esteem. He refuses to socialize with other Black students on campus unless they are like him. He despises the Black community in Athens. He is ashamed of the neighborhood he grew up in Atlanta and refuses to visit. So after years, he graduates with honors. After graduating, he begins to work at a lily white law firm in suburban Metro Atlanta. Later, he joins a large white law firm in Los Angeles, California. TJ earns lots of money, courts and later marries a white woman, moves into a white neighborhood in Beverly Hills. He raises his children to admire white people, but frowns each time a new black face moves into his neighborhood. He joins a white country club and consistently opposes new black applicants. He believes that increased black membership will lower the club standards. Politically, TJ is confused. He reasons that the government would be more effective if it did not aid its citizens. He has no problem with the government aiding big business, though. By American standards, TJ is a success. He has realized the American dream. He is perfect proof that the system works. By black standards, TJ is a disgrace, a misfit, a sickening soul, an Oreo, a swirl baby, a mental time bomb ready to explode. He has denied his blackness, or other words, Africanness, and snubbed the very people who sweat and sacrificed to make sure it was possible for him to acquire an education and thus earn a living. Without this struggle and the fight, no black person in this country could participate, much less succeed in any field. TJ is an ogre that the American education clones in mass. This creature must be mentally aborted if black youth in this country are to be free of them, to free their minds from mental slavery and work for the betterment of the black masses. Can anybody in here raise their hand if any of that sounded familiar at all? Okay, that's about 80%. Well, oh wait, I missed some hands. That's about 90%. Okay. Okay. Before I move on to the next slide, I will say that this isn't a real story, right? There is no TJ. There probably is somebody born at Grady Baby that did all this. However, I like to get a little personal with you guys. And the reason why I actually I really owe a lot to Nana Carter G Woodson, because when I actually went back to my Amazon, I'm sorry, Baba Kaz, I didn't know this was here at the time, so I had to go to Amazon. And I went all the way and scrolled back to my orders and I searched it up, and I realized that I first ordered this book on March 1st, 2017. Now I started thinking and I was like, what got me interested in ordering this book? I can't recall. And if I'm to be honest with you guys, that time period of my life is a little hazy. I did go to UGA. I did go like throughout my K through 12. I was that only black child in the classroom a few times. I would say that I didn't realize some of the things that was actually self-hating, right? I wish that y'all knew me when I first got to UGA. Because when I first got there, I actually went ahead and bought them short khakis, you know what I'm saying? Them short ones. I went ahead and got the Toms, you know, the shoes, Toms. I bought all the button ups, like the chaps ones. I didn't have enough for the polo at the time period. So I went ahead, I just got the chaps, you know, the knockoff one and everything. And when I looked around, I saw all these boys playing ultimate frisbee. It was none of us out there, but I saw all the white boys out there playing. I was like, hey, I guess this is my life for the next 3-4 years. So I'm ready to play ultimate frisbee. Then I go to this party. It was called Juice Jam. I didn't know what I was getting into. I still am like, I don't know how I found my people, because I knew of a sister that went to high school with me that went to UGA. There was a brother there. I didn't even know that he was popular at the time. I started asking people, hey, you know Steven? And they're like, the Q? And I was like, wait, he's a Q? I mean, yeah. So I ended up leaking with some people that I knew from high school. They told me about this party. I go to it. And it just so happens to be an Alpha and Sigma party. Fast forward 2 years, I ended up becoming a Sigma. I didn't know what was happening. I'm still like that semester. What I will say is I didn't necessarily plan on becoming a teacher. You know, I really wanted to listen to my mother, go into something in the medical field. Wasn't for me. I end up changing my major like 6 times because I'm trying to figure out what the heck am I going to do with my life. And I end up coming all the way back around to a joke that I would tell my teachers when I was in school. I would tell them like, hey, I'm about to go to college, I'm gonna get this degree and I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna show y'all how to teach because I don't think y'all know how to do it right. Fast forward, somehow I get into early childhood education and I'm in the semester before my last semester, so this is third semester in my program. I'm realizing that in Athens, because I would say there's probably only two people in here that can confirm this for me, but it is like a thing that the students at the school, the Black students, they'll ask if you're throwing a party, like, will the locals be there? Like, how are y'all doing that? Like, last time the locals, they were jumping over the fence and all this stuff. Like, so you can kind of sense that there's not a connectivity between the Black students in Athens and the actual residents in Athens. Which, if you don't know, if you just watch TV, you might think that, UGA is this big school and everything around it is just white. And you don't have to drink on that, by the way. But you're already there's nothing left to drink. So, I mean, that's also symbolism right there. But I'm gonna get to that in a second. So, what most people don't know is that Athens is actually Black. It's actually Hispanic. Like, when I was actually in my program and I went to Fowler Drive, all of my students were either Black or Hispanic. I'm hearing how the how the teachers talk about them. I'm kind of internalizing some things. I'm not realizing that I'm doing that. I leave from there and I go to this other school, which is called Barrow. It is the total opposite. Majority of the students in the school are white. At that school, they have STEM programs in the afternoon. At that school, they actually have more programs for the students to get into the arts. They have like piano lessons. They have all types of programs for the children to be in after school that are not necessarily for the students of Fowler Drive. What I realized later on was that was actually purposeful. They actually did redistrict the lines so that the students that were at Barrow were mostly the students of professors or just the students in those white areas in Athens. If you go to any other school out there, I'm sorry, I'm really drawing a blank. Like Alps Road, for instance. I actually went to Alps Road, and once I graduated and I taught there, that school is Black and Hispanic. Every other school in Athens, Clarke County is Black and Hispanic or very multicultural. However, Barrow's that one school, the nicest classrooms, the nicest playground, has all the programs. So I'm gonna come back to my third semester or it was my third semester in my program. And I'm realizing what's going on. I'm in a relationship at the time period and it goes sour. I don't realize how much self-hate that I internalized throughout my time period in my educational career. So let me preface by saying I'm no longer in this space and that this is like, it is personal, but just know I'm good, okay? So before I met my future brothers, I tried to take myself out, right? What ended up happening is, I don't remember the nights, but I end up in a rehabilitation center for about a week. My mom doesn't know where I'm at. Nobody knows. I don't have access to my phone. They said I'm like a 1013, but if I had the intentions of, like, I didn't tell them, like, essentially, when I was not conscious, apparently I said something when the nurse was asking me, how long have you felt this way? And my, not in my right mind, I say, all my life. I had a friend in the room with me and I remember her just putting her head down because she knew that was it. Like that's when they put me as 1013, meaning that I meant to self-harm. They put me in the facility, and I have a time of solitude. I'm looking at the people there. Well, actually, let me say that before I get there, everything is like a dream state. I wake up, I'm at the hospital. I wake up in the back of a van. I wake up, I'm out the van, I'm in a room, and I promise you, I thought this was all a movie. Like I remember the lady walking in asking for my name. I'm looking at the my information. It's not even right on my tag, my hospital. I'm like, bro, who is this? This ain't even my birthday. I talked to the lady and I was like, yo, I think y'all kidnapped me. And she's like, no, just calm down. And I start really trying to fight to get out of there. Then there was a guy that he ended up being my roommate, and he was like, okay, if you don't sit down, they're gonna give you the juice. And I thought about it. I was like, the juice? What is he talking? I was like, oh, let me sit down before they give me this shot. And I'm looking around at the people there. I spend my time there. I get the solitude. I'm writing, I'm thinking, I'm reflecting. And I'm like, I'm not supposed to be here. There's no reason I should be here. I'm listening to everybody else's stories that are here. They have family issues that are generational. They are, dealing with alcoholism. They're dealing with drug abuse. I have none of that. So I'm like, yo, I'm gonna say whatever I gotta say to get out of here so I can leave and live the rest of my life. The lady who was there that was taking care of me or making sure I was good, she said the entire time that I was there, she saw a light in me, and she knew I wasn't supposed to be there. She told me that I was an eagle, and I was like, what do you mean by that? And shout out to the Eagles. I don't watch football no more, but I know Baba back there, a Dallas fan, and he ain't gonna like that. So so she tells me I'm an eagle, and she explains that eagles fly alone. You weren't meant to be a follower, you know. I don't know. She said, I don't know how you got here. I don't know what your story is, but I can tell that you're somebody special. And the next time I see you, if it's on TV, it better be for something good. You better not be in here again. I was like, shoot, you ain't gotta tell me twice. I ain't coming in here again, you know. So I say all that just to say that TJ may not be real, but I did experience some of the things that TJ experienced growing up, which I'm not saying that I exclude myself to blame for my own actions. What I am saying is when we're in a society that is anti-you, a society that tells you that, having hair like this isn't professional, a society that the lighter, the better, a lot of that stuff you don't realize is seeping in when you don't have those around you to guide and help you understand that, this isn't real and this isn't really how you should be thinking. So I hope that didn't put a downer on you guys, but I did want to share that just to say that this is me. I don't know if this is anybody else experiencing here, but I know that I'm not the only one. And when I got out, I don't know if somebody said something to me. I don't know what it was, but I ordered Miseducation and I ordered I Am Not Your Negro by James Baldwin. So for me, those two books started something in my life that I'm so thankful for. I cannot, if Nana Carter G Woodson was here today, I would give him a hug because he actually helped me understand that every single thing that was in my educational career, right? Being an educator, I realized that I'm with these students more than their parents are. We're here 8 hours of the day. So if I've never had a Black teacher until high school, I never had anybody to look like me. I had 2 Black teachers. One was anatomy, and she was just trying to get us through because we were all failing. And she made all our tests open notes so that we could pass. Miss Johnson was cool, but that wasn't enough to help me. My other Black teacher was my basketball coach, and he taught science, environmental science. And since I was a basketball player, he let me joke around in class. So I didn't necessarily take it serious, and I wasn't really getting life lessons from him for my character. So I'm going to continue, but I say all that just to say that in 1933, Nana Woodson wrote articles and compiled them into a book that should not necessarily be his most iconic work because he made more. But that is the one that most people know. And if it wasn't for that, I don't know where I would be today. So I hope that y'all enjoyed the story. I hope that everybody's hydrated. And please don't all rush to the restroom at one time for me. So Nana Woodson said, the same educational process which inspires and stimulates the oppressor with the thought that he is everything and has accomplished everything worthwhile, depresses and crushes at the same time the spark of genius in the Negro by making him feel that his race does not amount to much and never will measure up to the standards of other people. So I'm going to speed through this just because I want to be courteous of people's time. And last time I had an event here, I ran over. Basically, everything that socialized the youth were European centered, from his toys, his TV shows, his teachers. The fact that, you know, he didn't, I'll say this. If you have a religion, it should be in benefit of you, not necessarily you being in benefit of the religion itself. And what I mean by that, I think Nana Garvey is probably one of the best examples of that, because he said we worship the God of Ethiopia. Now, what that means necessarily is that he's talking about the Afrikan God. He's not talking about, you know, the Michelangelo, the arm out there touching this naked white guy. He's not talking about that. He's not talking about the white hair, the blonde hair, blue eyed, which I grew up with in the back of my Baptist church looking, and my mom disputes it till this day, but I found the picture and I showed her, and she said, I think he's got a tan. And I was like, no. We even see the window panels, all the angels, none of them look like us. So imagine what this subconsciously does to children as they grow up. Like I said, if you have a religion, let it be in service of you, not you be in service of it. So I'm going to skip this one, and we're going to get to the life of Nana Carter G Woodson and explain why this month is not necessarily what some people may think it is. So Nana Woodson's foundation, he was born in New Canton, Virginia on December 19, 1974. His mother and father were James and Eliza, which were formerly enslaved people. However, you must understand Nana Woodson's father and his foundation to understand who he is. Now think about this. 1975, what time period in history is that? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, 1875. Okay, thank you. Okay, 1875, what time period is that? Reconstruction, right? So what was right before Reconstruction? What's the thing that we're taught right before Reconstruction? The Civil War. So that means our ancestors were still what? Enslaved. Now, let me tell you how bold Brother James was. Brother James was a carpenter. He built cabinets, but then he got debased and moved into a ditch digger. And one day this guy named James Scranton came by and he was like, yo, what are you doing, James? Now, James was smart. Anytime there was downtime, he would be working on his own field. He'd be working on his own harvest. He'd be saving his money so that he can do what he wants to do and take control of his life. And you're not supposed to do that during that time period. You're supposed to, you know, do what they tell you to do. So they come and ask, what are you doing? And he's saying, I'm minding my business, just like you should be. So then they start trying to whip him. And what ended up happening is he whipped James Scranton. He beat his behind. And this is during a time when you can be hung for this, right? So what happened was he whips him, he returns back to the plantation, and the plantation owner at the time period is asking, hey, where you been? What you doing? He said, mind your business. If you bother me, I'll kill you. Okay. What kind of foundation does that set up for a child during that time period when they know that their father and their parents are defying what society tells them they're supposed to be doing, taking control of their life? You don't get, Nana Woodson unless you have a father with that type of audacity. Now, his mother, on the other hand, she made sure that all of the children could read. Not all of, not his parents could not read, but his uncles could. So they taught him how to read. This is the beginning of a legend. So coming up, obviously during that time period, they're not the most wealthiest. So what he ended up leaving to work. Worlds, what in the world? Okay, y'all can tell I don't know what, I was sleepy when I put this. This don't even make sense. He works for the railroads at 17. So he leaves home to work for the railroads, but then he follows his brothers into the coal mines until the age of 20. At that time period, he was helping out his parents and his family with their financial situation. And when he came 20, he could finally leave and go off and go to high school. Now, what's incredible about him is that while he was in those mines, he met a man named Oliver Jones. Now, Oliver Jones also could not read. However, he understood the importance of knowledge. So what he did was he had a little parlor in his house that some of the coal miners would come to after work. He would have ice cream, drinks, and so whatever for them to chill, right? And when they found out that Carter G Woodson could read, they were like, oh, snap. Hey, bro, like, can you get these newspapers and read for us? And Nana Woodson was like, you know what? I'll do that if you let me get some ice cream. So they exchanged that. And if you haven't seen this book right here, this is actually James Oliver. What I love is that you can actually learn a lot from children's books. Sometimes there's some real gems in there that you're not necessarily going to see in those 400-page books. But he attends high school for the first time for full time. He accomplishes that in less than 2 years. He teaches high school for 2 years and becomes a principal. So his foundation is in education. He attends Berea College in Kentucky. He becomes a school supervisor in the Philippines. So he's well-traveled, and not saying that he's only thinking about America. He's seen other institutions, programs, and whatnot to have as examples. He then gets his PhD in history from Harvard in 1912. Now, who in here, let's do some trivia. Who in here knows who the first Black person to get their PhD from Harvard was? You should know. Anybody know? Want to take a guess? Let's think about the time period. Who are the only names that we might hear? Bingo. Du Bois was number one. Okay. I think Bob Obasi was trying to speak on there. Oh, that was crazy. I don't know. But anyways, so he's number two, right? He's the only one with history at that. When he graduates, he goes on to found the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, now the Association for Study of African American Life and History. In 1915, he publishes The Education of the Negro prior to 1961. So with this, if anybody tells you that we didn't have institutions, that we weren't teaching each other, just know that that is false. I'm not sure if Babacar still has it here, but there's this book called Fugitive Pedagogy by James Anderson that also talks about the ways in which we were teaching our own people during a time when we're not even supposed to be knowing how to read. And what ends up happening is he praises Nana Booker T. Washington in this book. He was actually a Garvey guy. He's following this lineage of independency. And in 1919 to 1920, he becomes a dean at Howard University. He's the first to introduce African American history as a formal course. But while he's there, what he realizes is he's wasting time. He's realizing he's having to run after other people, like Elaine Leroy Locke. They're all supposed to go to chapel, and he's like, bro, I don't want to go to chapel. Elaine's not going to chapel. Why I got to report him? Why I always got to do this and that? And he's like, I got work to do. So he stays for only about 18 months. He realizes that this institution is actually going to hold him back from the work that he understands has to be done. So in 1921, he publishes The History of the Negro Church. 1922, he publishes The Negro in Our History. And that book right there, keep that in mind, that book right there. That book was the book that our communities would use to teach. Now, you might have, I know James Anderson mentions this. There was a sister who was teaching in a school, and there is a curriculum that the other institutions, we're talking about the white institutions at the time, that they placed out there, you know, from the Freedmen's Bureau and the missionaries from the North. Now, what ended up happening was, while she's supposed to teach this curriculum that they have laid out on the desk, she actually has the education of the Negro, or the Negro in Our History, in her lap underneath the desk. So the entire time she's teaching an education to the students about themselves, rather than teaching the indoctrination that the Freedmen's Bureau, the missionaries, and so forth have put in play for her to teach. And she wasn't the only one. So what ends up happening is, and how we know that she's not the only one, is that through the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, he's actually fundraising and institution building. He would use that book to go throughout the country. He would go to schools, he would go to parents, he would go wherever he could to host these workshops to actually show how can you teach this to the youth, and how this actually helps our people in understanding who and what they are. Now, through this, he would train new scholars and pay for their schooling. He would build an established work ethic. And what we find out is that he was very intolerant of wasting time. Now, how we know this is because Lorenzo Green actually wrote about traveling with him, and he noted that he never really knew when he rested. He said he was always working. If it wasn't about his publications, he was studying. If he wasn't studying, then he was out in the fields. If he wasn't out in the field, then he could never catch him resting. Now, it's known that Nano Woodson said nobody else was going to outwork him. He was a coal miner. So how can you outdo me? In 1926, he establishes Negro History Week. And in 1927, they stated to make sure that people knew that this is not necessarily the Negro history, but the Negro in history. And I want to elaborate on that by just saying that at times, sometimes when we say Black history, we're taking the subject outside of the context of world history. Many people will see this as a sub history, a side history, you know, like the Robin to Batman. Like, this is the Robin tales instead of, you know, the actual story. So he wanted to make sure that people understood that we've been here, we've been doing things, and we won't necessarily have a race problem if we teach what we know we've done. So in 1932, there was an encyclopedia dispute. There's supposed to be an encyclopedia of the Negro. Now, here's how we know that Nano Woodson learned some lessons in his lifetime. He once took money from the Carnegie Institution. He once took money from the Rockefeller Institution. And he realized that every time he took money from them, they tried to control what he wanted to do. So the money ran out fast and realized he had to go do his own thing. And that's why he was out there fundraising. However, with this dispute, during the time period, I said that this book was the book that our people were using in what James Anderson calls fugitive pedagogy. However, the institutions understood we need our own, because if everybody else is using his work and he doesn't like us and doesn't work with us, how are we going to control these people? So what ends up happening is they have this dispute because they invite Du Bois, Arturo Schomburg. If you're not familiar with him, he was a great historian in New York. That like, I think they still have a Schomburg Center that I implore everybody to go check out. You know, maybe me just being a history buff, I want to go check it out, but I hope that y'all check it out. They had Elaine Locke there amongst others, and what you realize is Nana Woodson had smoke for everybody. He didn't care who you were. If you weren't doing the work, he was going to talk about you. So what ends up happening is years later, they create or they find John Hope Franklin after the whole dispute occurs. With that dispute, they only come out with a pamphlet of the encyclopedia. They never came out with a book. John Hope Franklin comes through, and he's one of the only scholars that, if you don't know, that was not connected to Nana Woodson. However, he did revere him. So it's not a knock on him, but just saying that they had to find somebody a generation removed from the situation that was also a top scholar to produce their work, which we see today, called From Slavery to Freedom, which is the #1 book that people use if you're in African-American studies. Quick question, Jawabu, did y'all use this book at all? Okay, maybe not #1 at UGA. So in 1937, he starts the publication, the Negro History Bulletin, primarily for teachers and children. In this publication, there would be articles from teachers, from children, and many other people that had anything to talk about the lives of Black people at that time period. He understood if we weren't writing about it, who would? So what they would use this for would be for competitions. They would have pageants. There would be so many different types of ways that he created this network of people with this bulletin. And the children were essentially Nana Woodson's main point of emphasis. And how we know this is when he transitioned, many of his contemporaries didn't know anything about him. They would ask, what did he do for fun? Nobody knew. But after he transitioned, and if you look at the Negro History Bulletin in the following 3 months after his transition, you start to see contributes from the children. And they would talk about him taking them out for ice cream, him always playing with them and so forth. He wasn't really hanging out with the adults. So what he did end up saying is, with this program, they said Negro History Week is the week set aside by the Association of Negro Life and History for the purpose of emphasizing what has already been learned about the Negro during the year. Can anybody tell me what about that statement is significant today? Okay, yes. Anybody have an idea? I'll read it again, where he says, Negro History Week is, my bad, I put an 8, is the week set aside by the Association of Negro Life and History for the purpose of emphasizing what has already been learned about the Negro during the year. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. What do we typically see today? Just that month. So what does that mean to a child when you're only hearing about yourself for 1 month? Exactly. I'll say this. I didn't put the picture in there. I forgot. But sometimes Afia goes to the library while I'm at work. And what ends up happening is she'll take pictures of things that she sees there during the month. During this month. And I don't know if y'all recall the faces that I had up there during the story of TJ, but may I ask, what's the library name again? Okay. So in the Fayette County Public Library right now, you can walk in there and look at the paper they have out there for display, and it's supposed to be Black History Trivia. The names that they have on there, I'll say this. Herman Cain. What do y'all think of with Herman Cain? Do y'all know who Republican? How did he die? Who did he run with? Why is Herman Cain the person they got on there? Colin Powell, who is he? What did he do when he first got in his position of power? Does anybody know? Exactly. So he starts becoming a part of the imperial destruction of third world people, right? He's bombing our own people. They had one more name on there. Thank you. Michael O'Hare. Michael, if it wasn't for this white woman, I wouldn't be in the NFL. O'Hare. Thank you. Why are these people the ones that they have as your trivia questions? Every person on there did nothing for Black people. So what does a child that goes to a public school institution, not learning about themselves, what do they get when they go to the library and see that and say, oh, I think I should know these names? What are they learning from that? Thank you. And on top of that, they actually had the red, black, and green flag in the side of it with the Africa in the middle like that. I don't know if y'all seen it before, but they had that one on the side. And none of those people represent what that flag stands for. So with that being said, thank you for your answer, because this month is only for the children to display what they've learned all year long. It's not just to say, okay, we're in this month, now let's throw Barack Obama on there, let's throw Martin Luther King on there, Rosa Parks, she was tired, George Washington Carver, all he knew was nuts. What the heck is that? That is nothing that is actually going to help them have pride in themselves, see the problems that we've actually faced, and understand how to move forward. You know, Mama Baina Bello, she has this quote where she's saying, you know, without understanding the past, she don't think you are capable of taking us into the future. So how are our children, which is our greatest prize, you know, there's that's one thing that I learned when I was teaching in Athens, when I was looking at those children and I had those experiences. My bro can contest. I got kicked out of a club because I thought the dude was racist. Turns out months later, he was racist and he was doing wrong things with the young ladies out there and everything. So he ends up losing the club and everything. So after that, bro, I went to the students the next day and cried, bro. I sat there and I was like, man, y'all, I'm looking at these beautiful children's eyes and I'm like, man, y'all can be the most clean cut, well-mannered, most articulate, and still get thrown out of a club. No, I'm playing, but in hindsight, I didn't know, and I'm the part of the person. I was part of the people with the program. I didn't realize that club had a history where they're like, you couldn't wear Timbs, you couldn't wear no J's, couldn't have no earrings in, you couldn't, like, it was everything that described the typical Black person. And it was like, bro, why would we have been there? I still to this day, I'm like, bro, why did we go there? Why? True. We're trying to make money, you know. So I mean, but yeah, it was moments like that that made me realize, like, these children deserve a lot more. You know, it's not about making sure that they're this clean cut American individual, you know, picking themselves up by the bootstrap, because it's not going to matter. And in these past few years, we've had examples of that, you know. I don't necessarily have to say the names, but we know we've lost many people that shouldn't have been murdered, killed, and so forth. You know, we have many people that we know that are right now. There's LA cop gangs. I don't know if y'all recently heard about that. It was on the Breakfast Club. I don't watch the Breakfast Club, but I saw that the sister that was on there, I think you shared it, right? And like, what do you do when there's cop gangs, like deputy gangs, and their objective for you to join the gang is the same thing that the Bloods and Crips did, was to go kill a brother. So what do you do with that? You can say your yes ma'ams, no sirs, whatever, and it still doesn't help. So I also purposely chose this picture right here, because who is that man right there? Does anybody know? Yes, sir. Jomo Kenyatta, right? So does anybody know who he is? Why he's significant? Okay. So and correct me if I'm wrong, because first president of Kenya. We're talking about the Land and Freedom Army. We got another name that should be known as the Don Kimathi in that same area. But this right here is evidence that he understood or this association, because I think this was around the time when he was older, but understood we have a connection to Africa that we need to continue with. And that, like Nana Omowale Malcolm X said, the man in Mississippi or the person in Mississippi is connected to the person in Africa. And you're not going to solve any Black issues here if you're only focusing on here and never get to the root, which is in Africa, right? So in honoring him, I'm going to wrap this up a little bit. In honoring him, if we look at his life and we look at his contemporaries, and they said all he did was work. They didn't see him, going to clubs. They didn't see him, he actually took a vow of celibacy. And it's not a knock on women, but he said that, he implied that women deserve the luxuries of life. And I can't hold them back because the work that I'm doing, it's not luxurious. So he didn't have any kids, except I'm one of his kids because he changed my life. So I hope to honor him and study, whether it's alone or with groups. I know it can be difficult, arduous to, read something longer than 20 pages nowadays. That's just not something we can scroll up on an article on, the Washington Post or something. But in order to get where we were, I don't think we would have just been reading, 15-minute articles and think that we understand what the situation is and to solve our issues. So we had to create our own institutions, right? And push our own information to our people. I think we have an example in here with Ms. Bridget. She created a school called Kalima Montessori, and it is a private institution, right? It's something where it's not funded by the government, right? It is a collective where about 90, at least 98, and this is just a random number, arbitrary. But let's just say 90%, 95, 99% of the families are Black or African descent. We have Black Dot, right? I can't afford $75 an hour, but Baba Cass allows us to come up in here and be ourselves, to get our information across to people. I'm thankful that he sees me as somebody that is serious about us and believes that, we deserve to be up here. We have many different institutions, but as we see, we need more. Every single person in here, y'all don't know how much or how highly I think of y'all, because ain't nobody else pulled up. And on Zoom, yeah, for the ones that just couldn't, we have my bro back there. He's a genius in tech. My sister right here wants to help out in situations of health. I have these two intelligent people right here with their beautiful African children that, they allow me to be in their presence every single day and teach them. I have my bro right here that I don't think he knows how much of an influence he has on people, and I think that he could start something today and people will follow and it'll be a great institution. I got my bro Jawabu back there, who is a historian in himself, but he just now went through this process that I'm not going to detail, but that I think everybody should be involved with. I got my other historian back there, Tay, that if you need any resource, he'll find it. Literally. Well, let me say that because I actually, because that reminds me of Black Athena. Black Athena. Thank you, Black Athena, and he's better than Google. We need our own Google, whatever it is, right? I got my sister right there, Kua, 16, right? But she's about to be at Morehouse giving a whole seminar on synthetic melanin. I got my guy Christian right there. Now, I haven't got the chance to talk to him as much as I would like. However, I can tell he's got a foundation that, if he doesn't turn his back on it, the sky's not even the limit, the universe is. I got my compliment right here that she might want to be shy right now, but she wants to create stories and she has an eye for it, you know. And then we have some of more of my students or former students, and Lauren and Brandon, which if I say this all the time, Brandon is hilarious and people don't realize it. He's probably the funniest kid I know. And doesn't even have to purposely do it. It's just what he does, how he does it. It's hilarious. And I can't wait to see what these two do as well, because they also have a solid foundation like Nana Woodson did. So everybody in here, I'm expecting y'all to be able to honor our ancestors, because I know that we can build these institutions. They're already built. We just need more. I tell people all the time, I want to kill Disney. Like Disney, we can have much better than Disney. Okay. When we talk about Wakanda, I tell the students all the time, Wakanda has nothing on what we can actually create. People are starting to see that, the Congo really is where the uranium is, which helps you make atomic bombs, where the coltan is, it helps us with our phones and technology. You don't say again. Help me out with that one. I don't know about that one.